Welcome in, everybody, to a special early afternoon edition of At the Book. I guess a special high noon edition here, Central Time, in the great state of Louisiana. We are ready to preview the sports weekend from a betting perspective. As always, I am joined by Jim Derry and Devin Jackson. Guys, how are we doing on this fine weekend?
Doing great. Ready to get the show out and go downtown tonight.
Got Sports Betting 101 tonight. That's the reason for the early episode of At the Book. And tonight at 6 o'clock, of course, on bet.nola.com and all these social media channels, you can find Sports Betting 101. If you're a beginner, if you're wondering what it's all about, even if you're not a beginner and you just want a refresher on stuff or just to tune in and see what it's all about, we are going to get down to the basics of sports betting tonight. And it'll be exciting. It's at Manning's Restaurant. You can actually still pick up tickets if you want. There's still a few tickets available for a pretty limited event, honestly. Did not release the tickets all the way to the public until this week, but there's still just a few available. You can go to nola.com/sportsbetting101. Still get your tickets for tonight's 6 p.m. event. They do include dinner and 2 drink tickets. There'll be a bar up there. You can buy more drinks if you want. After that, just make sure you got a ride home, and we'll get going. Doors open at 5. Event starts at 6. Should be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, it should be a good one. Just teaching some of the basics of sports betting and talk about, what we do every week here on the show. So definitely excited about it.
That's right. So if you've tuned in to At the Book or Odds and Ends on Monday or Jim Derry's Datitude podcast and you wonder, what are all these numbers they keep throwing around and the spread and the VIG and the money line and all, what do all these mean? Well, this is your chance to find out. Again, Sports Betting 101 tonight at Manning's Restaurant in downtown New Orleans. You can get tickets, nola.com/sportsbetting101, or you can tune in on bet.nola.com if you don't want to go downtown and get the dinner and the drinks with the show. Having said all that, we will welcome y'all into the program. Welcome Dave Hudat from Jersey. I'm headed to Jersey in a few weeks. I bet it's colder up there than it is here, though. Although it's cold in the studio today, so if I shiver, that's why, or I drink my coffee. But we do want to talk about the betting weekend. We've got James Carville coming up in just a minute. Let's first talk about tonight's NFL game. We've got the Ravens and the Dolphins. Looked like a good matchup. This is one of those they scheduled for prime time at the beginning of the year, and the Dolphins were close to the playoffs last year, and you think, it's a pretty good matchup. Dolphins have fallen flat on their face, Jim.
Yeah, Devin doesn't like it. It's Thursday night and there's football. Look, the Ravens, the last time they played the Dolphins, had to go look this up because Lamar Jackson's only played them once. It was a 59-0 blowout in favor of Baltimore. I don't think we'll see that tonight, but I do think this game favors Baltimore in plenty of ways. I'll talk about it in Big Bucks. It's actually in my Big Bucks picks. Baltimore, look, they need to get rolling a little bit. I mean, they've been winning, but not so much convincingly. Meanwhile, Miami got the big win last week. And I think this is a Baltimore kind of night.
Hello to Shonda. She's checking in from Monterey. And I see the weather might be worse in Jersey. I guarantee it's got to be better in Monterey.
It's definitely better in Monterey.
It's always better in Monterey. So we're happy to see that joining from all over the country here on At the Book. And before we go any further, I want to get into Cashin in with Carville. It's Thursday. This is pretty funny. We recorded this earlier today. And James Carville was hot last week. He was 5-1 on his picks, and then he gets automatically LSU and the Saints. They split their 2 spread picks, so he's 6-2. He was at his daughter's wedding last Saturday night and was kind of hoping LSU got blown out so he could focus on the wedding. But then when the game goes down to the wire, he wasn't the only one at the wedding who had to go find a TV and figure out what was going to go on at the end of that game. So funny story. Cashing in with Carville for this week is here. You can enter to play against James and against everybody else at nola.com/cashin-in, monthly and season-long prizes. And with that said, here is Cashin' In with Carville for Week 10. Welcome to Cashin' In with Carville. Another week, a good week for James Carville as we round into the home stretch of football season. James, you're rounding into fine form on your picks.
We had some rough weeks. We started out good. We went in a slump, but I told you, October was a horrible month for us. September was great. We got a good start in November, so let's roll from here.
Yeah, well, we won't be giving away nearly as many prizes this month if that continues. It'll be a November to remember. So, starting off with the Saints and their pursuit of Odell Beckham Jr., an LSU guy, a Louisiana native. What are your thoughts on OBJ coming to New Orleans if that does happen?
I read, I guess it was Jeff Duncan. Of course, I read everything that Jeff writes, and I thought he made a lot of sense. And I think it would help Odell to be back home. I think the parents are here and got a lot of friends here, and the team wants him. The players want him. I mean, that's the big thing. And sure. I'm not sure that was the case with the Giants and the Browns. He's wanted and loved here.
Yeah, I think you're right about that, and I think he would help the Saints. The question would be, will he play with a quarterback who is not established in the league? Who knows?
I don't know, but I like the idea. I think he's a tremendous athlete that has a lot of unrealized potential, and I think that in a coach like Sean Payton, you're going to realize a lot of that potential. I mean, I'd go where you have a really good coach, and sure. The quarterback can straighten itself out.
Switching over to the college game, you had your daughter's wedding last Saturday.
Yeah.
The Alabama game was going on.
I watch a game.
it comes right down to the wire. How did you juggle that act?
You know what? I had a few pops, and I said I had a good guess. I went back. The wedding was outdoors. I went in the house, but there were quite a few people were watching the game. It turned out to be, I mean, those kids gave one hell of an effort. I mean, it's the problem is very uneven. But we had probably 4 all SEC first, second, and third team players out. We had a lot. I'm sure Alabama's had some out too, but yeah. I think the future of LSU football is pretty good. It's real good.
I do. We'll see where the coaching search goes, but I think if nothing else, Ed Ogeron has his guys playing hard when he doesn't necessarily have to from a professional standpoint. So you've got to give him credit for that.
You sure do. I mean, look, they were playing. And from what I'm told, they were not at all pleased with any kind of moral victory. They thought they should have won the game.
They certainly had a chance to. So Arkansas this week for LSU. Let's get into some of the other college picks. A big game in the Big 12. The theme here in college this week is road favorites for our picks. So the first road favorite, Oklahoma, is laying 5.5 points in Waco against Baylor.
Well, I'm not going to have any mystery here. I'm going with every road favorite you got.
All right.
Oklahoma, I'm going with Georgia, and I'm going with A&M.
Okay, so he's spoiled it in advance, but we'll let James talk you through those picks. Georgia 20 at Tennessee, not enough points for you.
No, and I don't know if Tennessee can score on Georgia. I mean, Georgia puts their mind to it. I just think it's a match game.
Yeah, and it's Josh Heupel's offense is high-powered, but Georgia's defense is too. So,
and Oklahoma's just better than Baylor. I mean, kind of boils down to that, right? And at least a touchdown better. So 5.5, no equal touchdown. So ergo, take them. And A&M thinks they still have a shot at the SEC West. If Auburn ends up beating Alabama, which it's not the longest shot you ever heard in your life. And I know they're on the road, and Ole Miss got, great court, got a great offense, but Jimbo is just a better coach than Lane Kiffin is, show up in the end.
And in a lot of ways, both Georgia and A&M, you're choosing a great defense over a great offense, and sometimes that's the way football works.
Sometimes, sometimes.
Sometimes it doesn't, but that is.
But I think I think they're just better teams,
mm-hmm.
and better than by what the point spread shows it.
Moving into the NFL, and we only have one road favorite to talk about here. First of all, That's the last one. First of all, we're going to go Browns at Patriots. This line has shrunk a little bit. It started out the week around 3. It's now down to 1.5. I think I saw somewhere where it bounced back up to 2. But the Patriots, very slight favorites here. Where are you going?
Let's take the 2. I'll
We'll
take
take-
a -1.5. I that's what you sent me. So that's
Yep.
I'll take the 1.5 that I got. That's got a base to pick up.
We're going with 1.5, and so you're taking New England.
I am taking them. Now, you know that the reports of their demise have been greatly exaggerated.
Yes, they have.
But
Yes, they-
Belichick does not, he doesn't exit stage left anytime soon.
No, he doesn't have Brady, but he's still a good coach, and he knows what he's doing. And the Patriots are on a roll. Speaking of being on a roll, the Cowboys were on a roll until they hit the Broncos roadblock last week. Who would have thought that? But they're coming back home. They have Atlanta, who actually, after beating the Saints last week, Atlanta's in playoff position now. Falcons at Cowboys -9.
Cowboys.
Taking the
It's not
favorite
bad
here.
at all. Yeah, and that Atlanta game, the Saints Atlanta game, blew a lot of change. They're good, but that was terrible. I didn't like that game at all.
Got to hang on to the ball in the first half. That's
Absolutely. And I do think, going back to what we talked about earlier, I think Odell, would bring a lot of excitement to that offense. And he'd certainly make the defense would have to be aware of where he was at all times.
That certainly seems to be about what they're missing. And then finally, in the Sunday night game, we have Kansas City, another road favorite. They're -2.5 out in Vegas. Raiders, a team with a lot of turmoil this year. Of course, the Chiefs have not lived up to expectations either. So where do you go here?
The Raiders, I think they're pretty good. Kansas City, they played really hard against Green Bay. No, the Raiders at home. I'll take the Raiders.
Raiders.
And I'm getting points at home. There's always turmoil in the Raider organization. It's ever since I can remember. I don't remember what it was in turmoil in the Raiders organization. They live for turmoil.
Like in the DNA.
Yeah. And I got a couple of blue plates. Minnesota is playing. Are they playing Iowa?
That sounds right. Yep.
Yeah, Iowa, Minnesota, and they're getting. What are they getting?
I'm going to look it up right now just so we're on track. It's Minnesota's getting 5.5 in Iowa City.
I like Minnesota.
Okay.
And I think that Northwestern is traveling to Madison.
That's right.
And what are they getting?
They're getting 24 right now.
I had 24.5. Okay. So I
Okay.
would take the 2 road dogs in the Big Ten.
Couple of Big Ten.
Golden Gophers and the Northwestern Wildcats, I guess they are.
Yeah. They don't call it Lanyap in the Big Ten, but we'll call it Lanyap then.
Yeah, that's just 2 little blue plates. I'm gonna play myself.
All right. Well, we appreciate the tips and the picks, and we'll see you next week, James.
All right, go get on Zaxter, the great Zaxter. Maybe we'll know who the football coach is at LSU by next week.
Maybe so. It's coming around the corner, huh?
She'll be coming around the mountain. Here she comes. All right. See you.
All
man.
right. We'll see you. Always a blast with James. I don't know if I'd put up with anybody else calling me Zaxter, but
Oh, don't say
somehow
that.
well,
Don't say that.
somehow when he says it, it sounds it's just like warms your heart. So
My
I guess
name's
I gotta
James
do it.
too.
All right. Well, what is that supposed to mean?
Well, I mean, if James can call you Zaxter, I mean that includes me, right?
You got to do it in his voice, though.
Okay.
And by the way, it's the great Zaxter.
That's true.
Let's keep that straight.
Gotcha.
He was all over the road teams this week, especially in college football. A lot of road favorites: Oklahoma, Texas A&M, Georgia, big road favorite, of course, and then Arkansas. And let's spend a minute on Arkansas LSU. The Razorbacks have had their best season in years. LSU, of course, having, I don't know, maybe last year, but one of their worst seasons in years. But Arkansas only getting 2.5 at Tiger Stadium here. It's Saturday night in Tiger Stadium. LSU obviously looked very good in Tuscaloosa last week. But Jim, this is a key letdown spot, it feels like, for LSU. I mean, it just feels like all that emotion last week. We talked about this on Monday, but you're still feeling that way, I take it.
100%. I mean, this is LSU gave their all against Alabama. And wow, I mean, they gave their all and then some. I mean, I don't think, even if you would have told me they were going to play their best game of the year, I don't think they would have. I would have told you they would be able to hold Alabama to 20 points and keep it a game until the end. So, but I just look. I know they're coming back home. They're playing an Arkansas team that obviously was overrated early in the season. Arkansas is already bowl eligible, so they're kind of in a letdown spot too, right? But I just don't think – I think LSU is the best they could, and I don't see that kind of effort coming again the rest of the season, really. I don't think this is a good spot for LSU. It would not surprise me at all if they lost by double digits.
Yeah, I mean, it just – Arkansas, the defense is very good, and if they start scoring points against a makeshift LSU defense that played very well last week, granted, but sometimes you can get up for those games 1 week, but doing it 2 weeks in a row, Devin, is a little bit of a different story.
Yeah, it's going to be a difficult road for LSU. Even if their defense comes to play, I mean, Arkansas is a tough game no matter what year it is. They're just kind of that pesky team, but I think LSU will actually play well in this game. I know they're running like a 2-quarterback system potentially for the game. They're going to be rotating, I think, the 2 top quarterbacks they have on the roster. So I think that might affect the game a little bit in terms of who gets in the rhythm, of Max Johnson or, whoever, comes out on top. I think that will be kind of the thing to watch for this game. But I think LSU keeps it close through 3 quarters. I think Arkansas makes plays down the stretch to pull it out. But I think LSU plays them close throughout.
Yeah, a little surprising. Garrett Nussmeier at Ogeron said he would get some time, but we'll see what happens. I mean, it's you might as well, right? If you're LSU, give the younger guys some runs, see what they can do. I don't know that that's the best thing for winning this Saturday. LSU needs one more win to get to. No, they need 2 more wins to get to bowl eligibility.
Two,
but they got UL Monroe. Yeah,
right. So they really need one more SEC win. But look, that's a reward. I mean, and I don't have a problem with that. I mean, you're talking about a team that doesn't have anything going on. You're going to give the Nussmeier kid a reward. I mean, I'm sure the son of a former Saint, as a matter of fact. And why not? I mean, give him a chance to get in there, and what's it going to hurt? I mean, so it doesn't surprise me that he's doing things like that. Look, if anything else, is a loyal dude to his friends, to people that came and committed to. I know one thing: when he tells you something, when he's recruiting you, you can take it to the bank. And I've heard that throughout. I've known Coach O for a while. He's a loyal guy. When he tells you something, he means it. And so I think that's just what this is. He told me he would play him at some point, and Nussmeier has been part of this program and helped out the program doing what he's been asked to do, and so he's getting a little reward.
If I'm Garrett Nussmeier, I might rather have that against ULM than Arkansas's defense, but we'll see. Maybe he'll be all right. Well, it will be interesting. That's Saturday night in Death Valley, and then on Sunday at noon, the Saints get going against the Titans. This is a big game for the Saints. I mean, look, that loss to the Falcons hurt in a lot of ways, but it hurt in part because the Saints' schedule for the rest of November and their into December is tough. I mean, they got road games at Tennessee this week, at Philadelphia next week, and then they come back home, but it's the Bills and the Cowboys, 2 of the top teams in the NFL. You got to find a way kind of to at least split these 4 games, I would think, and it starts here. Now, having said that, Sean Payton, just a master as an underdog. He's 12-2 straight up in his last 14 games as an underdog, and so it's hard to bet against the Saints in this spot too.
It is. It's really, and if you look at the Titans side of things, it's not a good spot for them. I mean, usually when you lose someone the caliber of a Derrick Henry, that first week you can kind of go out on adrenaline. Defense usually plays a little bit better. It's the second week that kind of gets you. It's the same for when the Saints lost Jameis Winston. They came out with all that fervor. I mean, they basically played an entire game with their backup quarterback in there. What do they do in game 2? They come out and lay an egg. So you can bet they'll be ultra-focused. Look, we're talking about what their future schedule is. They know what their future schedule is. They know that this is the crux of the season right here. You cannot afford to go 1-3 or certainly not 0-4 in this stretch coming up I wouldn't call this a must-win per se. It's a must-win if they still want to win the division. But as far as going to the playoffs, it's not necessarily a must-win. But you have to go out there and you have to turn things around after the egg you laid last week. And no one's better at turning things around after a less than par performance than Sean Payton. And they will find a way, no matter who's playing quarterback, no matter who's playing receiver. I think this is going to be a good defensive game. I really like the under in this game. I like the Saints as well, but I really like the under because I think it's going to be more of a defensive struggle.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that. I was thinking about something. Of course, the OBJ sweepstakes are still going on. And I read this morning that one thing that might happen is Odell Beckham might wait until after this Sunday's games to make his decision. Now, that could just be because he needs some time. It could also be because he wants to see what these teams are doing. And does that mean Sean Payton tries to open up the offense a little bit and say, hey, yes, we will throw deep. Yes, we will get you touches. Trevor Siemian can do this. I don't know if that's the best idea, but it occurred to me that it could be something that happens if you really are serious about courting OBJ.
And if you do that, you have to assume that Taysom's playing, right? You're not going to open up the offense with Trevor Siemian. I mean,
he's at least going to play some, yeah.
I mean, I'm not saying he's not going to play some, but oh, you mean Taysom? Yeah, I think this is. Look, I think you're at the point now where Taysom's ready. I don't think anyone in their right mind believes that Trevor Siemian is going to be the quarterback of this team going forward in the long term. So if you're going to hand the keys to Taysom, unless there's more wrong with him than we know, and he's just not ready to carry a full load, which is possible. I think it's Taysom time. You got to do it, and I'm not a big Taysom fan. I don't dislike him, nor do I like him. I don't think he's a guy that can carry the franchise longer than you need him to. But I think in this case, I think he's your best chance to go to the playoffs and make any kind of noise. And if that's the case and he's ready to go, I think you got to go this week.
Yeah, I mean that's. I don't think you're alone in thinking that. Put it that way. But this is just a Saints season, Devin, where they've yo-yoed up and down, up and down, up and I mean, that's just what they're going to be. I mean, they're not a great team. They're not a terrible team. And it just seems like it's been this yo-yo. And Jeff Duncan had a column, I think last week, or maybe it was even after the Falcons game, like that's who they are. And if that's the case, maybe they yo-yo back up.
Yeah, I mean, they're known to bounce back and play well against really good opponents. And this is a Titans team. I think they last played in, if I'm not mistaken, 2018, I think. And they went into Nashville and got the win. So I think the Saints, proven that they can win on the road this year. They can beat really good teams. And honestly, this is probably the best defense that the Titans have seen thus far. I mean, they played the Colts twice. The Chiefs really aren't a great defense. When you're looking back at their schedule, maybe the Cardinals, but that was in week 1. So you didn't really know if the Cardinals are going to be for real or not. So I think this is going to be their toughest test yet. And the Titans haven't played a defense that just flies to the football like the Saints do. So I think it's going to be definitely a defensive struggle in this game. But I think Taysom Hill is going to be key in this one. I think you have to get him in there at some point in the game. I don't know who's going to start. I would assume maybe Trevor Siemian starts, and then they sprinkle Taysom in. If he gets hot, they let him keep going. But I think this is a type of game he can come in and kind of control it with his running ability. Him and Alvin Kamara kind of chew the clock and win it, that type of game. So this is definitely an important game for the Saints. And they're a team that could catch fire in the second half of the season. I know their quarterback position isn't great or ideal, but this team has enough talent to get hot down the stretch. And if the receivers play any better than they have been playing, I think this is definitely a playoff team at the very least, and can get at least one win in the playoffs, I would think.
Yeah, if they can get through this 4-game stretch at 2-2, like we've been talking about, they have a December and January where they play the Jets and the Dolphins, and they get the Panthers at home. They have some winnable games down the stretch. You just don't want to go in at 6-7 where you're going to have to sweep those games. And of course, they got to play the Bucs again too, so it's not going to be all easy. But they are in a position if they can stay with their head above 500 into December. They do have a pretty good chance if you look at the standings of making the playoffs. This game against Tennessee is the 17th game. It was the one that was added when the NFL went from 16 to 17. The rotation had the Saints playing the AFC East, And so this is the one game. Next year they'll get the extra home game. But it turns out to be a pretty important one. So.
Sure. I mean, I think they played, I think it was 2 years ago when they played, which is weird. I don't know how they decided who's going to play what. I mean, obviously, if you were first last year, whatever division they picked, you played the first place team in that division. But which is kind of, that division stinks so bad. Of course, we get the one team that's decent. The Saints, to me, roll over any of the other three, including the Colts. And so it's just kind of luck of the draw kind of thing. But look, you got to win these games. You can't worry about it. Look, they don't make excuses. And I think they will come out well. And I looked the look-ahead line for the Philadelphia game. Interestingly, you talk about the tough stretch. They come in as an underdog this week. They go into Philly right now. That game's pick 'em. So, I mean, if you want to jump ahead and you like the Saints next week, or if you like the Eagles, I mean, now maybe is the time before we see what happens this week, because if the Eagles lose their game this week and, the Saints win, that's probably going to be a 2 or 3 point swing. So look ahead lines I just find it interesting. The lines makers think that the Saints are going to struggle this week and next week. And then, against Buffalo, they're certainly going to be underdogs. And against the Cowboys, they're likely to be underdogs. But when's the last time the Saints weren't favored throughout a 4-game stretch? I'd have to go way back in the almanac to find that one, because I guarantee you, I don't think that's been in the Sean Payton era. Even through the 7 and 9 years, I don't think the Saints have gone 4 weeks without being a favorite. That's an interesting stretch.
Yeah, that is interesting. And the only time I could think of is when Teddy Bridgewater was starting, but I'm guessing there weren't 4 in a row during that. They were underdogs a lot.
No, I don't think so.
I don't think 4 in a row. Well, having said that, it'll be fascinating to see how the Saints approach that game. It's a big swing game. You lose it, you're 5-4, and you're really in a spot where you're fighting for the 6 or 7 seed in the playoffs. If you win, you're 6-3. You can still think about the division. You still feel pretty comfortable about the playoffs. So it's a big swing game, and I mean, there's going to be a lot of those at this stretch, but this is the first one. So let's go into big bucks. Let's play some big bucks. Last week was a good week for number 1 right here. Number 2 in big bucks. Number 1 in my own heart. Week 9 results. I was only positive. Devin, not your picks yet. We don't need your picks yet. Tell the people how good I was last week. That's what I want to see.
All right.
Texas A&M over Auburn, easy money. Saints Falcons under, that didn't work. Jim, you were on that one too. The Saints defense just wasn't as good as it usually is. But
I mean, you looked at the beginning of that game, it looked like that was going to be easy money, right? I mean, the Saints. Then when Atlanta got to 17, I'm like, because you knew the Saints were going to come back some kind of way. I mean, they weren't going to hold them down to almost nothing. So once Atlanta got to 17, I knew that bet was probably in trouble. But a friend of mine had a better pick, and I wish I would have thought of it, because he was right. Saints Falcons under in the first half. You had to figure they'd come out and struggle and kind of sleepwalk through the first half. I didn't think they'd go scoreless, but it definitely was a better pick and under for the game. I wish I would have thought of it before then, but I didn't, and we both lost it.
Yeah, that would have been one where had live betting been available in the third quarter, I think I would have bet the over live, because you could just see where that game was going. I do need both of you guys to answer for your Florida pick. I'm not sure any of us has missed a pick by that many points against the spread. They were minus 18. They lost by 23. So who wants to go first?
I'll go first. Florida stinks. I mean, that's the best way I could put it. I mean, I know Dan Mullen has already gotten another year for Florida, but to lose to South Carolina, look, it's fine to lose to South Carolina, but losing by 23.
And it was 40-10. I mean, it was worse than that. That's with a cosmetic touchdown at the end.
I could not see that coming at all.
That's called just giving up. I mean, look, you can't think it doesn't really. I think Florida would have been played their A game. They would have blown past. South Carolina's not good. I mean, but Florida, I don't think they're a bad football team. I think they just don't care. I mean, they're not playing for their coach, which hence he's gone. They just don't care. And so I'm not going to touch them either way the rest of the year. I don't want anything to do with them. I learned my lesson. And not only did I learn my lesson, I'm a much better pro guy than I am a college guy. I'm just going to stick to what I know better. and I'm gonna leave the winning to Devin in college football. And you,
yeah, Devin knows what he's doing in college football. I was on that under too, Utah Stanford, Devin, and that one was a heartbreaker because Utah's just running the clock out at the end, and had they just had they kneeled down, it's under 54. Instead, Stanford couldn't stop the run all night long, and the guy busts a long touchdown run. It's like, come on, and it's a blowout, so it wasn't like it was a situation where they're letting him score. So anyway, that was just one of those that happens to you. Week 10 best bets. Devin, you only had one NFL pick out of all your picks, which we'll get to in a second, but it was the one you put the most money on. What do you like about the Browns in Foxborough this weekend?
I think the Browns are starting to turn the corner a little bit, and I'm probably gonna regret this pick on Monday, but I just feel like the Browns. This has become must-win territory for the Browns. Like, they have to win pretty much almost every week to still be in the running in the AFC North to make the playoffs. I mean, because the Steelers are now playing decent football, and obviously the Bengals are still hanging around. So every team in that division is hanging around and has the chance to make the playoffs. So they have to pretty much win every game they can. So I think this has become somewhat of a must-win for the Browns. OBJ being gone seems to have lifted whatever their struggles were on the offense, because they put 41 on the last week. So I think they'll go in the Foxborough ready to play, pressure Mac Jones a ton, force some mistakes, and I think they pull out the win.
It's interesting. All three of us have a little skin in that. I think, Jim, you have the Browns in a teaser, and I also have the Browns winning that game outright. No Nick Chubb, probably. He needs 2 negative tests before Sunday. He is vaccinated, so there's a possibility he could play. But no Kareem Hunt for sure. That means it could be Dearness Johnson again, but Dearness Johnson looked real good against Denver a couple weeks ago, and that's a pretty good run defense too.
Yeah, I'm with Devin on you guys both. I mean, I think to expand a little bit on Devin's point about the Browns, I think it's not necessarily that they have to, kind of win out. I think what they need to do is beat the teams that they match up with. And they're in a position now to where they've got themselves back into the race in a very mediocre AFC North. I mean, and I say mediocre, they're all either, I think they're all above 500. They're either above, the Browns are the only ones that are at 500. The rest of them are all above 500. And so they're in a position now where they can't afford to lose the team like the Patriots. And conversely, the Patriots, I think they've overachieved a little bit. They're not going to catch the Bills. They're still in a good position to win the wild card. Not that players think about these things when they're playing, but I just think that this is a position where you're going to see the Browns a little bit more focused, coming off a big win, and I really like them as well.
Yeah, and tell us about another teaser. You won your last teaser by the skin of your teeth on Monday night there. You have 2 of them this week, but this is the big money one.
Yeah, I'm looking to get that root beer any way I can get it. Teasers have been working for me lately. And what I've been doing, and this is something that we'll probably talk about tonight, but the thing about teasers is when a teaser, you're knocking 6 points off of whatever the spread is, whether they're favored by more than 6 or underdog, or it takes them from a favorite to an underdog. You want to go through certain key numbers, right? And so the Ravens tonight at 7.5. I hate that 7.5 number. I hate that hook. A lot of times if I like a team, I'll just buy the hook. The hook is that half a point. And tonight for the Ravens to drop down below the 7, to drop down below the 3, and get them at 1.5. So basically they just need to win unless something fluky happens. And then for Tampa Bay, I wish it was a little bit better teaser, but I wanted to tease the Ravens with a team that I really liked and actually think will cover on their own, and that's Tampa Bay. I also have Tampa Bay in my picks. We'll see in a minute. But you take Tampa Bay from 9.5 to 3.5, and you go past that 7.5 as well. I think this is a great teaser to play here. You're talking about 2 teams that are kind of looking to make that second half run a little bit as they turn the corner on the season. This is about the time when I think both of these teams need to start making a move. And
Tom Brady in his career very good off the bye week, so we'll see if that holds true. But at the same time, the Bucs are winless against the spread on the road this year, so they'll have to break that streak to get you. Well, they wouldn't have to. The teaser could save you there if they.
Also, Zach, you need to be thinking that they're going to be ultra focused after losing to the Saints and having an extra week to think about it. And I know the Saints lost last week, but which gave them their cushion back. But you're going to have to think they're going to be ultra focused this week after losing that game. I know the Bills beat Jacksonville last week, but I think the Bucs losing this week would probably shock me more than the Bills losing to Jacksonville last week. Coming off that
my
bye.
best bet. Yeah, yep. And speaking of trends, my best bet of the week, I'm going against a trend. Jeff Brom at Purdue's been very, very good as a double-digit underdog in his career. In fact, I mean, it's just an absurdly good record against the spread as a double-digit underdog. But Ohio State's in a spot where they've messed around a couple of times, and I don't know about almost lost, but at least had a reasonable scare put into them by Penn State and Nebraska the last couple of weeks. They're coming back home. Purdue is riding high. They've beaten Iowa and Michigan State 2 of the last 3 weeks. Now they go into the horseshoe. I just like Ohio State in the spot. Purdue's secondary is banged up. Ohio State seems like they could just go right down the field on them. Just doesn't seem like enough points to me, and so that's what I went with, although it always makes you nervous to go against that trend. So we'll see how Purdue does in that one. Devin, your big bucks picks. We talked about the NFL pick, but what are you seeing on the college landscape this week?
Yeah, Michigan, Penn State, the 48.5 under. I want to take the under on that. I think this is going to be neither offense is extremely explosive. Both teams rely on their defense. I think I could see like a 21-17 type of final, very low scoring game. So I decided to take the under on that game. Georgia, Tennessee. I think Tennessee covers the spread. I think, obviously they're not going to put up a ton of points against Georgia, but I don't think Georgia's going to score a ton offensively either. And I think this is probably Georgia's last tough game, quote unquote, before they play the SEC championship, because they're probably going to run by Georgia Tech in their final week and kind of that rivalry week type of thing. But I think Tennessee has a good enough offense to cover the spread. So I'm taking Tennessee on that. And then I'm taking Boston College against Georgia Tech. I didn't really understand that line per se. Georgia Tech hasn't been great this year. Boston College coming off believe a Thursday night win last week, and they have their quarterback back. Phil Dracovic, who came back from injury. So I think Boston College should be favored in this game. I'm picking Boston College to win outright. So those are a couple of the picks I like this week.
I'm fascinated by that Tennessee-Georgia game. I almost went the same way with Tennessee with the 20, and then I thought, Josh Heupel's offense, I don't know how many people paid attention because it was during the LSU-Alabama game last week, but Tennessee played Kentucky last week and won the game by a touchdown with like 12 minutes of time of possession. I mean, I'd have to look it up. I mean, it was ridiculous. Kentucky had 40-something minutes time of possession. It was more than 45. Josh Heupel doesn't care about time of possession. He will play for the quick strike, and they got it against Kentucky. And so I'm fascinated to see Georgia's defense doesn't give up hardly anything, but could you beat them down the field? They're so aggressive. Could you beat them over the top? This is the type of team that could do it. But I'll tell you this, if you don't do it, then Tennessee's going to get killed because their defense is not that good. Georgia's going to score points. And so I originally had Tennessee, and I shied away from it. But I'm fascinated by that matchup to see if the Volunteers can put up some points. If they can't do it, I'm not sure anybody puts up points on Georgia because that offense is high-powered, high-octane. So I don't know. It'll be interesting to watch. I'm not super confident. I know you only put 22 on it, but it will be interesting. Jim Derry. Jim's back under 1,500. What a shame.
It really is. I mean, it makes me sad. To y'all's point, though, I like Tennessee as well this week. Every really good team, I mean, goes through a game where, I mean, Georgia really hasn't been tested, right? You got to think that this is the week where before the SEC championship that at least they're going to be some kind of like test. So I like Tennessee as well. And even though I don't think Tennessee is all that good of a football team, I think this is a spot where Georgia kind of lets their guard down a little bit. They've had some issues off the field on the defensive side of the ball. And so maybe their mind's not all in it. I think this is an interesting week for them. So we'll wait and see. I like that pick a lot. But look, I do have two teams. We talked about the Ravens, Bucks and Cowboys Browns. Look, I think the Cowboys are going to steamroll Atlanta. I really do. Coming off that bad loss, good teams usually bounce back and in a strong way, and I think this is their chance. And I wanted to pair them, just like I talked about with Ravens, pairing them with a team like the Bucks. I wanted to pair them with a team like the Browns, who I think are going to cover straight up, but it gets the Browns past that +3, past that +7. So it's a good number to do a teaser with. And then going down the stretch, we talked about the Saints and Falcons, Cowboys under. I like the under as much as I like the game. I don't think the Falcons going to do very much at all. I could easily see the Cowboys winning this game, like 34-10 or something. That's what I think is going to happen in this game, something along those lines. And then going down the list real quickly, Colts, Jags. Jags did what they wanted to do. Usually when bad teams come back off of a game like they had last week, they usually really flop the next week, and the Colts have to have this game. This is a spot where the Colts, Jets, Jags, in back-to-back weeks, they have to play their best football. I think they will do that. And then I just have this sneaking suspicion. I don't know what it is, and maybe it's because the Steelers just squeaked by last week, and we were all joking with each other Monday night. Now, I don't think this is a very good football team. I just don't. I mean, we joke about Big Ben versus Justin Fields Monday night, but Ben's terrible. The Steelers aren't that great. I mean, of course, their defense is okay, but the Lions coming off of that bye week, bad teams coming off that bye week, they know their window's getting short to get a win, right? I think they're going to give everything they got. It wouldn't surprise me at all if this was the upset of the week in the NFL, the shocker of the week, I guess. And so I want a little bit of big bucks down on it. And then lastly, Seahawks, Packers, whether, Russell Wilson and the Aaron Rodgers debacle, who's starting quarterback? Well, you got two quarterbacks one who missed last week, one who won't be able to practice until Saturday, even if he plays. If it's Jordan Love, I like the under even more. Russell Wilson, you got to figure it's going to take him time to get back into the fold a little bit. I love the under in this game.
Yeah, I'm interested too in that Lions game. I don't know that they'll win outright, but that's sort of a traditional spot to fade a team. They played on Monday Night Football, so they've got the short week, and the Lions are coming off a bye. So you're telling me that that's a big spread for any NFL game. Anything over a touchdown is pretty big in the NFL. And that's just a traditional spot where a team coming off the bye has got a couple of point advantage just because of the rest. And so I'm with you on that. I don't know about outright, probably worth a little sprinkle, but I do like the Lions on the spread. My big bucks picks, I'm trying to climb back toward our starting point of $2,000 here. And one game I really like, besides the one we already talked about, which was Ohio State, is a Friday night game, Cincinnati at South Florida. South Florida's no good. They give up a lot of points. And Cincinnati's at the spot, almost more so than Ohio State, where people they're number 5 in the CFP rankings, but they have struggled the last couple of weeks. Tulane, they really kind of sleptwalked through that game. And then Tulsa darn near tied them up at the end of that game last week. Cincinnati had game day in town. I mean, it seemed like they would be pumped up. At some point, they've got to get it rolling, and I think they're a good enough team to do it, and South Florida's a bad enough team to where, for me, that's not enough points, even on a Friday night road spot. I faded one of James Carville's blue plate specials without even realizing it. I'm going to keep rolling with Wisconsin. They've helped me out the last couple of weeks, and this may be too many points for an offense that's not that good, but Wisconsin's been forcing a lot of turnovers, so we'll go with that. And then in the NFL, I actually went against you, Jim. I like Falcons, Cowboys to go over that high total. I think that's just a shootout spot. Could be one of those for like daily fantasy. You want to stack players from those teams because it just feels like Cowboys get out to a lead and then they're exchanging touchdowns in the second half. We talked about the Browns. And then Sunday night, again, a pick I'm not real comfortable with, but the numbers, if you look at it, tell you the Chiefs deserve to be favored by more than 3 in this game. And so if I can get them at under 3, I'm going to go ahead and take it, although not for a lot of those big bucks, just 22. So those are my top.
Can I ask you about that one? And
go ahead.
I'm not trying to be funny or pick at it, because most of the time I am. But the Chiefs Raiders, I think it's the other way. I don't understand why the Raiders are given. I said it in my NFL picks column. If you took the KC off the Chiefs helmets, and I don't understand why Kansas City is given points at Vegas. I know Vegas stuck up the joint last week, and they've certainly had their off-field issues. But they are the division-leading they're the division leaders for a reason. The Chiefs keep stinking it up. They only beat Green Bay with Jordan Love 13-7. They can't score against Green Bay. I don't understand why they're giving points there at all. I didn't pick it in big bucks, but I didn't. It just. I kind of think what you think a little bit, and I could get it, but at some point you got to get off the Kansas City train, right? I just left it alone. I did pick the Raiders in my NFL picks column because I didn't understand the line, but that's one game I probably won't touch at all. I just wanted to get your perspective on why you thought the Chiefs deserved to be given points there.
It's one of those where you pick it even though you don't really like it, because if you think logically instead of emotionally, like if you think emotionally like the Chiefs have, you're right, they've stunk up the joint for a good month now. I mean, even at the beginning of the season, they weren't themselves, but especially the last month, really since they played, I think, Philadelphia, they played pretty well. And since then, they played in Tennessee and, of course, the Green Bay game. They haven't played well, but I still feel like at the beginning of the year, this spread is like 6 or 7. And so if I'm getting below 3, objectively, I see value in Kansas City. Again, I don't really like it. I didn't put a lot of money on it, but it's one of those where you got to kind of trust your head over your heart. At least that's my perspective on it.
I just wonder at what point do you? I mean, I agree with you. If this is week 1, the line's at least 7. But at what? There's a guy I listen to that I really respect, who's a really great handicapper, and he's like 61% over the last 5 years. And he says the look ahead. I mean, he talks about what the lines would have been in week 1 all the time. Like in the beginning of the season, this would have been. I never understand that philosophy. And I'm not putting it down. I mean, it does mean something in a way. But at what point do we say Kansas City is not Kansas City anymore? We've been watching this over and over again. And there's a lot of people that think the way that you do with this line. It's just a weird one. And Kansas City is so intriguing to me because at some point you got to think they're going to wake up, right? But I've been thinking that for 3 weeks now, and finally I said, you know what? I'm not thinking anymore. Let them prove it first.
I mean, they do. They've got to make adjustments, right? They've been facing that cover 2 shell defense. Make Patrick Mahomes just to borrow, speaking of the Chiefs, to borrow a Hank Stram term, make them matriculate it down the field instead of hitting the big shot, right? And Mahomes has proven that he's not patient enough to do that so far. But at some point, I trust he's a good enough player, Andy Reid's a good enough offensive coach, that they will make those adjustments. Now, again, you're right. Maybe they need to prove it first, but once they prove it, those lines are going to shoot right back up. And so I'm trying to grab it.
And Edwards-Helaire is coming back, if not this week, very, very soon. So maybe that will make a difference. We'll see.
Listen, a lot of tough lines this week, a lot of interesting ones. It's been a great show. And guys, I want your final thoughts. I do want to mention before we go, Sports Betting 101 tonight, 6 o'clock, Manning's Restaurant, right next to Harrah's, New Orleans. If you'd like to come, tickets are still available at NOLA.com/sportsbetting101. Or at this hour, we're talking about 5 hours from the event. In fact, I'm driving down right now after the show. You can get tickets at the door tonight too, as long as they're still available. So you want to make sure you get them, NOLA.com/sportsbetting101. Otherwise, you can look for them at the door. It includes dinner. It includes a couple of drinks, and we're going to have a lot of fun. All 3 of us will be presenting as part of that. So that is 6 o'clock tonight, Sports Betting 101. Guys, final thoughts, starting with you, Devin.
Hopefully it's not as a chaotic week of football as last week. I mean, it's great watching wise, but betting wise,
I like chaos.
I would like to have some normalcy.
No, that's true. Chaos tends to lose us money, so that's it's fun but not profitable. Jim Derry.
This is kind of like one of my favorite times of the year. As we go in, get into the heart of November. Obviously, people who know me know I'm a big high school guy. I call high school games outside of this, and the prep playoffs are coming up this weekend. And this is when the teams, and to me, in pro football, really start to show who they are. So as we're getting into the playoff season, we're getting into basically for the NFL what is their pre-playoff mode, right? If you're a playoff team, we get to see now whether you're a legit playoff team or not. And so we talk about all those things on Datitude this week. We had a lot of – I hadn't touched the prep scene very much. But we talked about it a little bit this week. And then I think Friday's show with the cast of clowns that I got coming on to make our picks, for the most part, we've been doing pretty well. We've got some interesting picks coming up on this Friday's Datitude as well.
All right, so check out Datitude tomorrow. Sports Betting 101. Again, you can get to Manning's tonight. Please do so. If not, bet.nola.com will have the live stream for you if you want to check that out. And this has been At the Book and Cashing In with Carville for another week. For Jim Derry and our producer, Devin Jackson, I'm Zach Ewing. Have a good one, everybody.